Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you tonight to a really fascinating young lady. Vanessa Petronelli is her name, and she is a popular media personality and life and business coach who works with CEOs, business owners, and creative professionals who are going through a dark night of the soul. A dark night of the soul in their life and business. Her clients go from anxiety, burnout, and stress to a renewed sense of purpose, peace, and connection. We're going to get a longer description of what she does, but that is kind of interesting. And so I got to ask you right off the top, if I could, Vanessa, what's a dark night of the soul?
Yeah, I know. I had a feeling you would ask this. It is such a catchy phrase that I don't think a lot of people are very familiar with. So, how I look at a dark night of the soul is, we go through major changes and transitions as human beings, both personally and professionally. And dark nights of the soul, it's a spiritual reference. It's a spiritual term that has people kind of feeling like they're going through an identity shift, where the things that they had been focusing on or they've been doing suddenly don't feel like they're a fit anymore for them. These are kind of the points in time in people's lives, both personally and professionally, where they kind of go through a bit of a midlife crisis or a quarter life crisis, where it just feels like everything in their lives is up for reevaluation. And it feels uncomfortable. And that's the Dark Knight kind of reference there. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like an ego death. It feels like your entire world at times is crumbling and dismantling because the things that used to bring you joy or meaning or fulfillment or passion, suddenly that sense of connection and that sense of identity of, oh, these are the things that I love to do, or this is who I am, or I'm very identified with this in my business or my career. It just doesn't feel like it fits. There's no longer a resonance, but our minds have a hard time understanding exactly what the heck is going on. So it can be a very, very confusing and challenging time for a human being to go through that.
Do you think lots of people have dark nights of the soul, or everybody?
I do believe so. And I would say that over the last couple of years, what we've seen just with everything going on all over the world, I think a lot of people have been going through dark nights of the soul more than they're even maybe even aware of, because we've had to look at our world from a different lens. The world stopped. People, who
We
are
all took a
working.
time out.
Yeah, we all took a time out. And I think in that time for a lot of people, there was a lot of reflection. If we spent that time wisely, there was a lot of internal reflection. And I want to say just insight into, does this feel like I want to continue to do this? Because we finally slowed down enough to be able to question those things, because we move at such a fast pace in our lives that, when we finally have taken this time out and our world has come through, to a pause, we finally get to ask ourselves, does this actually make me really feel fulfilled? Does this bring me peace? Is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life?
Well, we've heard lots about quiet quitting and the great resignation and things like that. And so maybe we're going to come back later on today and talk a little bit about what's caused all this. But I want to also give you a chance to describe what you do. And so, I understand that you have high-level one-on-one programs, group immersions, and retreats that combine what you describe as, I love this, crystal clear intuitive guidance. Crystal clear intuitive guidance. I've never gotten crystal clear guidance from anybody. Potent mindset work, spiritual principles, and practical business tools to help your clients soar to their next level. As a result, your clients walk away from this work feeling more alive and optimized, systemized in their business, while bringing in more money and opportunities with clarity, ease, and joy. That sounds wonderful. How do I sign up? Where do I sign up? This is incredible.
Well, let's have a chat and I'll see if or how I can support you, Brian.
Seriously, how do you do this? Like a crystal clear intuitive guidance. How do you do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of takes me back in time to being a kid. I've always been very intuitive, and always had just a knack, a sense for things going on in the world, and for people. I have ability to really see and feel and interpret where people are out of alignment with themselves. I have a good BS meter. And I can see where people are just not living in a higher integrity within themselves. So, I've been developing my intuitive and energetic healing gifts for many years. I mean, it's not something that just happened in the last year or two. This is something that's been a lifelong gift. And I've always been very spiritually connected, even as a child. I remember just getting insights and hearing things that felt very loving, that felt very supportive. And I've always listened. I mean, I was the guinea pig with my own gifts from the time I was a little girl. So I was able to basically give them the attention and to be able to follow through, if you will, on the insights I was receiving. And I would see how accurate a lot of the guidance and the messages that I was receiving for myself were. And at 14, it was probably one of the most prominent times of my life. I was told that I would go into the entertainment industry. And prior to this, I had no desire to be an actor or a singer. I loved music. I was always extremely creative, and very drawn to the arts growing up. However, I never had this vision or this knowing that I would be going into this industry. What I did know was that I was here for a purpose and that I was here for a specific reason. And it was through the course of my lifetime that I got to be able to discover what that was. And so at 14, I'm told you're going to go into the entertainment industry and you're going to get involved with certain projects that will make a difference in the world. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, sure. All of a sudden, everything in my entire reality starts orchestrating around me getting involved in singing. So I was in a pop group from—
You're in a pop group.
I was in Toronto. I was in the pop group called Savvy Cafe. This was back in the day. If anybody asks, if there's YouTube or Instagram or anything like that, we didn't have those things back in the day. So I was in a pop group, and it just really was orchestrated in such a way that I never in a million years would have imagined I would have been in a pop group. And here I was being selected as one of the girls. And we did that for many years. We toured all over Toronto. We did lots of shows. And then I was, an actress, and I did a lot of modeling work and started my first business around 1920. But everything that
What? 1920?
Yeah. Well, I was
1920 years old, not— yes. 1920 the year.
Not 1920.
I was a little bit shook up there.
I'm a time traveler.
Exactly.
A special
in addition to clear, what was it again?
Crystal clear
intuitive guidance. You're a time traveler.
Exactly. How cool is that? But yeah, everything was just my whole life has been very intuitively driven. And when I was 24 and I had left the industry, it's a fairly long story. I won't get into all of the nuances of it. I went into one of my first dark nights of the soul, and it was about a year of me really doing some deep, deep soul searching, because I really believed that by 24, I would be in LA in the entertainment industry, working on big projects. And I kept just knowing in my body and in my intuition, my gut was just saying, this is not for you anymore. This is not for you anymore. And I kept fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. And I thought, no, I'm going to make this happen. How many humans, how many of us walk around being like, I'm going to continue to do this no matter what? And we don't listen to that inner knowing within ourselves that something is coming to an end or something's completing. And so I went on this dark night of the soul, the first of several significant ones, and left the industry, left the business that I had opened in event marketing and promotional work, and just asked God, show me, what am I really here to do? Reveal to me exactly what it is that I'm on this earth for. And about a year and a half later, I'd gone back to school. I already had my degree from York. And I went to Centennial, and I studied a program there that was in health and wellness. And that's when I started this business. And that was about 14 years ago now. So I knew that my calling was to help people. I just really felt deep within my being in that time of soul searching, like I'm here to really help people to remember the power that's within them, to remember that they have a purpose, to remember that we're here for so much more than just working and making money and, getting married. There's so much more to life and to ourselves than what our society has taught us and has conditioned us to believe. And so, my gifts, my intuitive gifts and my energetic gifts, I did readings early on in my career and then stepped away from that because I was tired of people giving their power away to me, asking me, what's my future going to be like?
Tell me,
I'm not going to marry this.
Crystal clear intuition, please.
Yeah, and to me that didn't feel right for me because I knew I was here to help people get empowered within themselves.
Well, we're going to have to come back and understand exactly how you do this because it sounds like a special gift that you've got. We're chatting tonight with Vanessa Petronelli.
Petronelli.
I apologize. If people want to check you out, maybe use some of your crystal clear intuitive services, how do they do that? Do you have a website they should go to or follow you on Instagram or what?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above. So you can go to vanessapetronelli.com and you can check out my services there and a little bit more about my work. You can follow me on Instagram, same thing, at Vanessa Petronelli. Facebook, same idea, Vanessa Petronelli. I'm pretty active on my social media. And I mean, most of my work on social media, part of how I support people is using my intuitive gifts, but I would say everything I do is extremely practical. So I always believe that if we're going to use these kinds of intuitive, metaphysical, spiritual gifts, we have to be able to ground them in the here and now. If we can't utilize it in a grounded and practical way, then it's useless. So people will get a sense of what my work is like and what I'm like, but I predominantly speak mostly to, entrepreneurs and business owners and creative entrepreneurs who are, going through these major shifts and transitions in their lives and in their businesses.
We're going to take a break and come back in just 2 minutes with Vanessa Petronelli, a fascinating individual that has this crystal clear intuitive guidance, a potential mindset work, spiritual principles, and practical business help tools that she provides to her clients. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in 2. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Vanessa Petronelli. She is a life and business coach. We're chatting about the dark night of the soul. We're talking about how she helps people that are going through the dark night of the soul with her crystal clear intuitive guidance, mindset work, and spiritual principles, but also practical business tools. We've talked a little bit about how she's gotten into this business, which sounds really fascinating. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit more about why people go through this and what skills she's got and what this crystal clear intuitive guidance is. Because Vanessa's really got a fascinating background. As she mentioned, she was a certified yoga instructor. She was a member of an all-female pop group here in Toronto called Savvy Cafe. She was a runway and print fashion model, actress, and get this, a classically trained pianist. Now she's when she's not serving her clients, she's enjoying the music scene in Nashville, Tennessee, and traveling across USA and Canada. She loves hiking in the outdoors and exploring the music scene. And she has an adorable rescue dog, 2 dogs, Leo and Chloe. Sounds like a pretty full life for yourself. Vanessa, tell me a little bit about who it is that comes to you when they're going through this dark night of the soul. And how do they know they need your help?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. The people who typically find me are, creative business owners, they're creative professionals, they're CEOs, they're entrepreneurs. So they're small business owners. Most of the people that I work with tend to be quite creative. And I'm imagining that has a lot to do with the fact that I'm pretty creative myself and have had a strong artistic background. But, when people come to me, something just within their being, and I will reflect this briefly, they are feeling really alone in this process. That seems to be one of the major struggles, is that, Not a lot of people in their lives may understand what they're going through. They don't even fully understand what they're going through. So when they're coming to me, they're coming to me feeling already a little lost, a little confused. They're struggling in some way. They're having a hard time really getting into the flow in a way that maybe they used to with their work or in their lives.
What do you
And there's
mean the
just
flow?
flow just being like, oh, I enjoy going and working on my business, or I love serving my customers. There's just an ease to it. There's a passion around it. Suddenly that doesn't feel like that is a connection for them anymore. And there isn't really an understanding of why. Why doesn't this feel like it resonates anymore for me? I guess the best way to describe it is my clients come to me when they feel like they've outgrown particular areas of their lives or their business. And when they've outgrown it, it's like, imagine you've been wearing, a leather jacket that you love for years, and it looks great and it fits well on you and it feels stylish. And then all of a sudden, one day you start putting it on and it doesn't fit the same way and it doesn't really feel like you anymore. And you kind of look at it and you're like, I hate this jacket, but I don't know why I hate this jacket, because I always love this jacket. So I'm going to try to keep wearing it so that I can feel that feeling that I used to get when I wore it, but it never comes back. So I help my clients in that gap of, I want my business and my life to feel fulfilling and joyful. I want to feel that passion and that creativity and that inspiration again, but I don't. And I don't know how to get there. And I help them on that trajectory of getting to this, a new aligned place within themselves and their businesses, where they really feel like, this is who I am. This is me. This feels right.
Now, you talk about a system called the Reset Your System. What is Reset Your System that you work people through?
Well, I'm going to just be honest. This website is going to be very different in a week. So this is going to look very different. So I do a lot of guided processes for my clients, and Reset Your System is basically to recalibrate your mind, your body, your soul. It's to help your nervous system to not be in a dysregulated state. And I had put this up actually on my website during the pandemic. Because so many people were feeling so stressed out and anxious and living in a lot of fear. This was, a guided process that I was able to give clients, give people who are new to my work, the ability to just get that reset, come back to your heart, come back to your body, come back to the present moment, which during this time has been really challenging for a lot of people for obvious reasons. So.
And how do you do this? Do you like sit down and talk? Do you put them on a couch and act like a psychiatrist? Do you have a series of questionnaires? Like, what is it that you do?
Well, so the basic process is, when a client comes to work with me, I always have a conversation with them first. So I have to see if, my specialties and what I'm doing in my work, is going to be a fit for them. Can I help them? And if I'm not the best person to help them, I'll send them to somebody else that I believe could be potentially somebody that can. But let's say a client, we chat, we have a conversation, it sounds like it's a great fit for both of us. Then we start the process. I give them a whole onboarding where I get a real sense of, what they're going through. And I work with my clients over a period of time. So yes, there's an option to have like a one-off session with me to kind of get a feel for what the work is like and what I'm like. But typically transformation happens over time, and a lot of these sort of transitional periods, these cycles, like the dark night of the soul, are not something that it's like one and done. We have one session and you're all of a sudden, I'm on the other side, I feel great. When people are really in the thick of this, we have to work together for 90 days to 6 months, sometimes longer. And when a client comes to me, we typically meet every 2 weeks. They have forms that they fill out before every session, so I know what's going on for them. And my clients get very high level support. So they also have access to me in between our sessions. So we meet over Zoom. I haven't done a lot of in-person work for a little while just because it's logistically not been as possible. But I'd like to start doing in-person events and retreats
Can you
again.
actually have this intuitive sense of what is right for people by talking to them over the computer?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Energy knows no distance, no space, time, or dimension. I can feel who they are and what's going on, when we work together. And I kind of like in this work that it's like two souls connecting and they know that they're meant to connect in that time.
Two souls connecting, really. That's what
Yeah.
people would typically talk about as a relationship couple. And this is something you can do as a coach.
Totally. I mean,
Really?
we are all here. We all have our own soul contracts with the people we're meant to meet in our lifetime. I truly believe this. And so I know that when somebody comes to me and we're really meant to work together, there's just a resonance on both sides. But I'm asking them questions to, really understand the depth of what's going on for them so that I can help them. And then when I start to work with them, you start to know the ins and outs of what's really going on for them, below the surface. And I form a relationship with my clients where some of the things they tell me, they don't even tell their own families or their
Really?
closest friends. Yeah.
So you're
It's
really
very
like a
deep.
therapist, getting really close to people.
I can't say that I'm a therapist because I'm not trained as a therapist, but I can say that the relationship feels similar to that, but therapy is very different than coaching. So there's more of a focus in therapy on the past, whereas in coaching, it's very much about focusing on the vision and the future and what you're creating. So we do spend a little bit of time in the past because I need to know what's been happening for them, but we don't spend a lot of our time there. So we're working on really creating the future outcomes that they're wanting for themselves.
Sounds fascinating. Let's take a step back. You, as we talked about, you were a yoga instructor. You were a member of an all-female pop group. You were a runway and print fashion model. You were an actress and you a classically trained pianist. You told me that you went to York and then you went and took courses at Centennial in health and wellness. When I check you out on the internet, you've got a ton of different publications and articles about you. How did you get in this business? What kind of training do you go through to get in this business? How do you know that this is right for you?
Yeah, great question. So in that program I was in Centennial, I spent a lot of time learning coaching skills and a lot of the kind of development that helped me formulate the business that I have. And initially it sort of started more in the wellness space. And, I worked with clients while I was in the program. It was an amazing program at the time. I feel very blessed. And I had my first life coach at 23. So for me, it's yes, the training around being able to do this work, but it's also the ongoing professional and personal and spiritual development. And that's something I've been devoted to since my early 20s.
So when you say spiritual, are you talking about religion or something different?
No, I would say it's more spiritual, less religious, really understanding what that connection is to God. I mean, I think for so many people who are not religious or who have maybe had some kind of trauma in, a religious upbringing, there's a sense of wanting to unpack what happened and to formulate, possibly, if there's an interest there, of course, what that relationship to something bigger than ourselves is. And for every person that's different. I work with people who are religious, and I work with people who would identify as not being religious but are spiritual. So it's really, for me, the spiritual development has been more about, what does my relationship to God really look like? And what does that mean to me without any other influence outside of me? And who am I in the midst of all of this? And who am I with my gifts and my expression and my purpose? So yeah, I mean, I would say that this uncovering the healing journey, uncovering my own traumas, my own conditioning, my own belief systems, that's been a huge part of this. And I always say this, like, when we're doing this professionally, it's one thing you can go to school and get a textbook training and or certification or whatever, but if you're not actually growing yourself and you're not a growth oriented individual, when you work with people, they can feel it, they can sense it. So the deeper we go within ourselves, the higher we can take our clients and the people that we're working with, and the higher we can go as well, in the sense of being open to more, being open to experiencing more, learning more, knowing more. So I would say the training's been important, sure, but more than anything, I mean, I've had thousands upon thousands of hours of coaching
Really?
clients, thousands of clients all over the world. So I've, had that experience from a technical place, but from a real personal place, it's also been my ongoing inner work, that's been super important so that I can really support my clients appropriately.
You seem to post on Instagram and social media incredibly frequently. Is this advertising for your business, or are you trying to motivate people? Or it's really quite impressive how often you're posting very inspirational things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When I post, it's coming from my heart. I realize that there's going to be people in the world who may never have the opportunity to work with me, or we're not going to be able to work together. And so, my social media is, yeah, definitely a form of marketing for sure. Full transparency. It's a way for people to find out about my work. And I do get a lot of clients that come through social media, but it's also a way for me to offer value and a lot of it for people who may never ever feel guided to working with me, or aren't ready for that, or it's just not accessible on this at this point in time in their lives. So I do what I can to inspire and really help motivate people in the world, because we really do need a lot of positive influencing right now for people, because it's been a really difficult time for
Well, I
so.
love what you say is the objective, which is to have joy, clarity, peace, abundance, flow, ease, confidence, trust, creativity. That's a pretty good objective in life.
I would say so too. I think a lot of people in the business world have been so focused on money, 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 and being this huge famous influencer, and all those things are great. But I feel at the end of the day, that's not everybody's objective in life. And I think we all want to have financial stability. I think to a certain degree, for sure. At least most of the business people that come to me are looking for that. Than anything, you can have all the money in the world, all the success in the world. But if you feel unfulfilled, if you don't feel peaceful, if you don't feel confident in yourself, if you don't have that inspiration and that passion, and you're having to work really, really, really hard to get into flow, to feel good, then it doesn't matter how much you have, right? At the end of the day, that's what's most important.
Yeah, well, I
In
think lots of
my
people are,
opinion.
as you say, lots of people I think are feeling that way, and where they may not call it the dark night of their soul, they are going through anxious time periods. Why don't we take a break for some messages and come back and let's talk a little bit more about what this dark night of the soul is. What are some of the situations people find themselves in? You've talked about midlife or half life or quarter life crises, and then I think we're going to talk a little bit about some examples of how you get people through these situations. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Vanessa Petronelli. She is a popular media personality. She's a life and business coach. She works with CEOs, business owners, and creative professionals who are going through what she calls a dark night of the soul, and she helps them in their life and in their business. And it's interesting because what you talk about, this dark night of the soul, and you've got a couple of descriptions of this. I really want to go through some of this and have you explain it if you could. You're talking about people that have anxiety and doubt. They're facing burnout. They're drained. They're stressed. They can't sleep. They feel lost. They're on a roller coaster. Do you think this is a lot of people?
I would say so. I think a lot of people are going through this, and we go through cycles of this, right? So I wouldn't say everybody's going through this, because that's an absolute statement to make, but I would say a lot of people are going through this kind of process right now, and it's keeping people up at night. Especially when we are dealing with so much uncertainty and so much of the unknown. We don't know what's coming up. We don't know what's ahead. And I'm not just talking about our personal lives. I'm also talking about globally,
Yeah.
Especially after the last couple of years.
You're saying that you went through this yourself 3 different times. Can you tell us a little bit about that at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned earlier in the conversation, I initially had gone through a huge one when I was transitioning out of the entertainment industry and really working on discovering what my purpose was, because I had become so attached to being in that industry for 10 years that leaving it behind was like shedding a whole identity. It was shedding a whole life,
A
grieving a
lot of
life.
people are identified by what they do.
Yeah, totally.
And if
We
they lose
totally
their
are.
job or they get laid off or they quit
Mm-hmm.
or because of a spouse they have to move, they lose a sense of who they are.
Yeah, it is a really difficult thing to go through. And because we attach so heavily to these identities that we are our job or our business or this title or that, when those things get stripped away in some kind of way, shape, or form, it's very hard to feel stable. It's very hard to feel a sense of connection to yourself. This process is about seeing yourself even from an even larger and bigger perspective, because we aren't just our jobs or our businesses. We're so much more than that. And when we actually go through on a deeper level, we discover, we explore, who somebody really is at the core of their being, not just what their business is, not just who they are in their relationships or in their families or how much money they make. It gives people a deeper sense of meaning and fulfillment, because now they get to be just whatever expression they feel that they need to be. And what I mean by that is you don't have to be attached to or pigeonholed into this role or identity that you've always claimed you are. Now you can actually be freer. You can actually say, oh, you know what? I don't have to stay stuck in this kind of career or in this business. I actually get to do the thing that really lights my heart on fire, my soul on fire.
Yeah.
That's the kind of meat that I'm, working on with my clients, is discovering what that is for them.
Okay, so you went through this, you say 3 times. Once was when you lost your identity because of a change in business. Can you tell us about the other two at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I moved to the States in 2015, that was a huge dark night of the soul for me, because I was up against so much personally and professionally. And when I had moved to the States, my husband's American, just so that everybody knows. It was always my dream to live in California. And I moved to California, and we ended up getting married, but I thought I was going to go back to Toronto after 5 weeks, but I knew when I got there, this is going to be my home, but I didn't know how to get there. And coming from Canada and moving to the US, and my business was online at that point. I didn't know how I was going to make money in US dollars. I mean, there's only so much Canadian savings you have. I wasn't connected. I wasn't with my community. I was, in a new place, in a new city. I was living in LA and Santa Monica. And I remember going to the beach every day and breaking down and just asking God, like, show me how to get through this. How do I stay? What do I do? How do I get clients? I'm not supposed to work, like, what am I supposed to do in this process? And everything unfolded beautifully, but it was definitely one of the most exciting, but also very turbulent times, because I'd always lived in Canada, and just doing a huge move like that with so much uncertainty in terms of, am I going to be able to stay in this country? Are my partner and I, are we going to have to separate? There's a lot that comes up. So every area of my life was being reevaluated in terms of the kind of future I wanted to create for myself. So that was a really significant time. And I would say the last one, big one, was actually in 2019, 2020. I intuitively knew something big was coming in the world. I could feel it months prior. And that sense of discomfort and also disconnection. I was doing a lot of work in Hollywood. So a lot of my clients, and prior to 2019, 2018, 2017, I was getting a lot of clients that were in Hollywood. I was doing a lot of work in Hollywood because that was a part of one of my iterations and evolutions in my business, was to take this work and work with people in the industry, because I had been in the industry and I
Yeah.
loved it. But then again, I went through this whole dark night of the soul of, this doesn't feel connected to me quite the same way anymore. And what am I doing? And who am I here to serve? And I actually ended up taking a sabbatical. I worked with the clients that I had, but I wasn't marketing. And I took a sabbatical in 2020 and really did some deep evaluation around my work. I was writing a book at the time, put that on pause, I was in this space of really turning inward and asking myself, like, what am I here to
I
do?
think lots of us did that during COVID.
Yes. Yeah, it's so important. But during this time, Brian, what was so cool was that I actually saw that this whole body of work around transitions and all these major changes that people go through, that's really the heart of what I help my clients with. And I've built a whole body of work around this process and helping people to better understand what that looks like and what that is for them so that when they go through it again, it's not going to catch them by surprise. They're going to understand, oh, this is one of those other cycles I've got to go through. And these are the ways in which I can navigate this because I'm helping them go through it, but get on the other side of it and then have the tools to feel empowered enough that when they go through it again, which we all will, they'll know how to take themselves through it. That's the beauty of this work.
One of the things that I guess in social media you've talked about, and you're sort of addressing this now, is that you try to figure out who authentically you really are. And I was really impressed by one post that you talked about where you said that you at one point in time didn't think that you were being you. And that you had this mantra that you read about the more authentic you are, the more you show up as me, the more I speak from my truth, the more magnetic I am to those who are aligned to serve in this world. That's your motto. And that you talk about how people are drawn to people that show up authentically, and the world needs more people that are authentic. Tell me, why do you think, number one, people are not authentic, and then number two, why is it that so much lately I've heard this word authenticity, that you got to be authentically you? Why is that helpful?
Well, I mean, I think so many people are not authentic because, one, for starters, they don't really know what the authentic self is for them because we are conditioned from the time we are children to be a certain way, to believe certain things, to have certain values, to think a certain way. So we're pretty much walking around with belief systems that, were programmed into us from our parents or guardians, from, teachers from a very early age. And so some people don't even know who they authentically are, like the real true self, the real true me. And, we do it out of fear. The second thing is a lot of people are afraid to speak their truth. They're afraid to be their authentic self because they're afraid that they're not going to
Maybe
be
they don't
loved.
like their authentic self. Maybe they're trying to be someone else.
Totally. And this is really, a disconnect from self-love and loving and accepting who you are and knowing that who you are is lovable and acceptable. And that's a process, right? You can't just wake up. It's inauthentic to just wake up and be like, well, I'm just going to accept myself today. Yesterday I didn't, but today I am. There's really deep work that comes around that to be able to embody and be your fullest, most authentic self. And, for years, I also was afraid, afraid of being seen as this woo-woo mystical woman and being outed as some kind of fraud or something. And,
Are
I've
you
done.
a woo-woo mystical woman? Do you like use
Yes,
cards
I
and
will say
things?
that there's a huge part of me that is like that, but I'm also very grounded. And that I think is a big part of my gifts. I know how to be here. I don't hang out in we call it in this work, the ethers or in the heavens, in the sky. I'm here on earth and I'm very, grounded and practical. So
Okay, so give me a sense then, if you could, if I came to you,
yeah.
what's the methodology? What do you do if you're not using woo-woo stuff? What is it, or maybe it is woo-woo stuff? What is it that you do to try to figure out who people's authentic self is, and what the dark night is they're going through, and what's your clear intuitive judgment that you provide to people?
Well, I will open with this. My job is to have you feel so seen, so heard, and so understood in a way that most people in your life probably can't meet you.
Really?
That is the number one thing for me, goal for me in my conversations, is that you walk away feeling like, wow, this person really knows how to see and accept and understand me, hear me in a way that other people in my life can't.
Isn't that what friends and family members are supposed to do?
You think, but oftentimes it's not always the case because most people don't have those kinds of skills developed within themselves. It's not maybe something that they've learned or they've been trained in. Communication and really learning how to be with somebody is a skill that can take years to build and to become experienced in. So when people come to me initially, we have that first conversation, and one of the first questions I ask is like, what has you reaching out? Like, what had you schedule this time in? Why is this a now conversation for you? Tell me more specifically what's happening in your life. Let me understand where you are. Let me see what you're going through. Let us explore that a little bit.
And so people would just talk to you about what's going on in their life and what they're frustrated with and what the challenges that they are.
Yes, they just unpack very honestly and openly, because I mean the caveat here is I always open up every conversation, and clients know when they work with me, but initially when people come to me, it's fully 100% confidential, and I invite them and encourage them to be as vulnerable and open as they possibly can, even though this is, a new meeting, we've never connected before, let's say. I want to invite them into really feeling relaxed and knowing that this is a judgment-free zone. Like, I'm here to just love you up and love on you and hold this beautiful, I call it sacred space, for you to just be you and to unpack and just share all the things that you've been holding on to, or you've been giving bits and pieces to other people, but you haven't really been able to fully open up around. And then from there we talk about, like, okay, let's imagine for a moment you got to create a future for yourself in the next 3 months, 6 months, even year. Like, what would that look like? And I want you to not focus on the things that aren't working or the problems or the fact that you think that it's not possible. I want you to actually imagine, just sit back and just really just be in the space of what could be possible. And we talk about that, and that really opens people into tapping into something that brings them more joy, that brings them that peace, that brings them the inspiration. Oh my gosh, my business would be like this. I would experience that in my relationships. I would feel this way about myself. Money would be flowing in this way. That would be happening. And so when my clients or potential clients at this point are sitting with me, now they get to have a vision of what could be possible. And then
this is more than just sort of optimistic, positive attitude, secret kind of stuff.
It's way more than that. I mean, we're not doing the work yet. I want to actually know, where do you want to go? If I'm going to help you, I can't decide what that vision is for you. I'm your guide. I'm supporting you on that journey. What I want to know is, where do you want to go? And this is part of the I think the issue for a lot of people is we don't actually give ourselves time or space to really be in that possibility, that visioning, that imagining what could be possible, because we're just trying to get by every day. We're just trying to make ends meet. We're just trying to pay the bills. We're trying to take care of our families. We're just trying to, take care of ourselves, So this is an opportunity for you to really dream big, bigger than maybe you ever have. And then we do talk about the things that are in the way, what's not working well. And, and then we really get into the nitty gritty of, like, okay, if we're going to work together, which I always believe is a co-creative process. I'm not here to say I have to work with you and you need me. I don't work in that way. We decide together, does this feel like a fit? Is there an urgency to start the work now? And if there is, then we talk about what that would look like, and we decide, on the kind of program that's going to best support them. And I also give them all my insights around what is really going on based on everything that I've heard and I've seen and that I've been understanding. So that's kind of an initial process.
And is this primarily usually business oriented, or is it personal oriented, or both?
It's both. I would say it's both, because I here's how I frame it, Ryan. Your business, your career, let's say, because I know not everybody listening is going to have a business, right? But your career, your job, your business is an extension of you and who you're being and how you're feeling and what you're thinking about and what you're focusing on, etc. So we can't just work on business without actually working on you. And a lot of people do come in and say, well, I'm having problems here, or this is going on there, or I'd really love to, experience something different in this relationship or with my health, or, I'm not really feeling very good about myself. So it's a mix. It's definitely a mix.
I like how you once described it, that you've got to be a CEO of your own life and business. And then on a daily basis, you got to do that. You got to create a different kind of energy that is more potent and magnetic to clients and customers and opportunities of abundance and more. And so that when you wake up and you're aware how crucial it is to get ahead of the agenda, being empowered, aligned, and optimized CEO of your own life with full authority over your mind, energy, money, and business, that will help you thrive moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this idea. I think so many people think, oh, I'm not a CEO. No,
But you are a CEO of your own life, is what you're saying.
Yeah. You are a CEO of your own life, and you're a CEO of yourself. So even if you don't run a business or you're not running a Fortune 500 corporation, you are your own CEO every single day, and you need to make empowered decisions that are going to either help you create and continue to create the reality in life that you want and the business or career that you want, or you're not making very empowered decisions, for a variety of reasons, because you've forgotten that you're the CEO of your life. So, I really love this frame, and I think it's helpful for people because they're like, well, I'm not a CEO, so I don't need to show up like that. But it's like, yeah, you are. For
And
you.
as you say, you have so much more to offer and to step into in building this new earth. Now is the time to go deeper within yourself, and it is your business to role model to others around you what's possible. We're going to take a final break for some messages. And Vanessa says she's got 3 tips on how we can all do this. And so when I come back, I'm going to ask her what these 3 tips are. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in just 2. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I'm inspired tonight in chatting with Vanessa Petronelli. She's a business coach, a life coach. She works with lots of different people on helping them get through what she describes as the dark nights of the soul, and figure out where they should be going in their life and business. And she describes that she has this crystal clear intuitive guidance, a potent mindset work, spiritual principles, and practical business tools that help her clients find these objectives. And Vanessa, you said that you have 3 tips for people who find themselves going through the dark night of the soul. What are those 3 tips?
Yeah. Well, for starters, tip number 1 is please know that you're not alone. Just remember that you are not alone. Just repeating that, I know I'm not alone in this process, is going to potentially find a little bit of comfort. But I'm going to give you some more practical tips. So there might even be 4 on this one. So the second one is to really create some time and space for yourself to just be with the emotions and the feelings that you're having. I think so many people, when they're going through this process, are really stuck in their head and in their thoughts of all the ways that they want to escape or get out of what they're feeling because it's so uncomfortable. And so one of the things is creating that time and space to just be with yourself and to really honor where you are in this moment, that there are changes, acknowledging that you're in a transition, that you're in a time of change, whether that's big or small, and feeling the emotions around that. For a lot of people, there's a deep sadness, there's a frustration, there's an anger, there's a feeling of grief, even of the life that you are shedding, the life that you are letting go, or, whatever kind of prompted or was the catalyst for all these changes to happen. So it's really important to spend some time with yourself to just be and to feel the emotions that are coming up around this process. The third piece is journaling is great. Journaling is so helpful. So it's such an amazing way. We kind of call it a brain dump where, morning and night, because a lot of people lose sleep when they're going through these kinds of situations, right? They feel uncomfortable. So, when you go to bed at night, all the things that you weren't really focusing or thinking about during the day seem to get exasperated and come up while you're trying to sleep. So get yourself a journal if you're not already doing that. Maybe you've journaled in the past, start doing journaling again and just write out your thoughts, write out your feelings, get all of the things that are circulating in your mind out on paper. It's a process that actually starts to alchemize and transmute a lot of the emotions and the feelings and the energy that's going on internally. And it gets it out on paper. So you're not ruminating about it in your head. And that's a very cathartic process for a lot of people. That can be super helpful just doing that. And the fourth piece is get support. I know I'm biased on this because this is what I do for a living, but I will tell you, having a team of support, having people that you know, like, and trust, that you can build a rapport and a connection with, somebody who can professionally walk alongside you and can understand this process you're in and help you navigate and get on the other side of it, that is so, so essential. And that also helps you to not feel alone, because now you're feeling seen, heard, and understood in a way that maybe other people can't, or you weren't able to even understand or see yourself in this process. So finding some kind of professional support with somebody that you really feel gets you and can help you through this process is really vital. And it's been one of the most important pieces for me in my journey, of having those people that I can, go to talk about this and about this process.
I think, one of the things that you're talking about is that really you've got to be intentional about this. You've got to make a choice. You've got to realize that, life doesn't just happen to you. You create the life that you want. And you wrote about this, which I really liked, that you said it, remember, it does come down to choice. You can choose to blame factors, people, what you're all up to, the weather, etc. But you've got to decide what you want to do. And you wrote down a couple of things that I really liked. You said, who are you choosing to be this week? Where are you choosing to place your focus on this week? What are you choosing to give your energy to this week? And how are you going to stay in integrity this week with those choices? That you hold way more power about creating your life and your future than you actually think you do. And it comes back to, I think, personally, I don't know if you agree, but I think personally, we create our life. Life just doesn't happen. Obviously, the environment we're in and whether there's a war or whether there's a hurricane or whether there's a pandemic will impact us. But we create our life and how we react to those things that occur.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. And those questions are great journal prompts, to ask yourself every week, because we're not victims and we can't blame the external forces and factors outside of us for being where we are or being unhappy. And this is a hard truth for a lot of people, because on one hand, it's like, wow, I'm that powerful that I can create a life that I want. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, but it feels easy to blame or be a victim sometimes to the circumstances or the situations, or, blaming the weather or the government or this or that. And it's like, no, come back to you. You are responsible for your own joy and peace and happiness. You're responsible for your own success and fulfillment in life. Don't forget that it's all about you. It's not about anyone or anything else. It's about you.
Vanessa, if people want to check you out, how do they do that?
You can visit my website at vanessapetronelli.com, but please come and find me on social media. Social media is a way that we can stay engaged. You can, DM me. You can, tell me what it is that really spoke to you in this interview. Vanessa Petronelli on Instagram, Vanessa Petronelli on Facebook. Yeah, please reach out and let's connect.
Vanessa Petronelli, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I think you've inspired us all. And so I think this weekend we should all take a little bit of time to figure out, who our authentic self is, and use some of your suggestions, and probably reach out to somebody, whether it's Vanessa Petronelli or someone else, to talk about, what we really want to achieve in life and what's holding us back and who our authentic self is. Vanessa Petronelli, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It was great being here, Brian.
That's our show for tonight. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, even from Nashville, Tennessee, at www.saga960am.ca. You can get all my podcasts and video casts on my website, briancrombie.com. My podcasts are on everywhere that podcasts are posted, and my videos are on social media and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody.